Hello, everyone, and welcome up to episode 289 of Kouryer podcast. Our today's guest is Mr. Jordy Knoop. He's a character concept artist from Utrecht, the Netherlands. And in the captions, you can find the ID to his Instagram account, the links to his website, Twitter account, and also our station as well if you want to see more of his works as well. And it goes without saying that we're reaching the end of the season 3, like this episode 289. In 3 to 4 days, episode 290 will be recorded. So yeah, and I'll probably try to get to episode 300 by the end of spring, and that will conclude basically the third season of the podcast. And with that being said, I will probably my upload frequency will become much lower during the rest of the year, but I will try to upload those group discussion podcasts that you've seen recently in winter as well. So the activity won't be completely gone, but the format, as you know, will probably go on hiatus after episode 300. So just want to let you know on that as well. But without further ado, let's, focus on today's episode. So thank you so much, man, for, taking your time out of your schedule for coming on this podcast. And how are we doing today?
Yeah, no worries. Nice to talk to you. I'm happy to share my thoughts. It's good, nice weather here. So I'm excited to be on and have a talk.
All right, awesome. So let's actually start off with the signature question of the podcast, which I start off each episode with usually, which is give us a little introduction on how we got into the world of visual arts and design. Basically, tell us your backstory of, what led you to, become an artist, and choose art as your main path in life.
I think very early on as a kid, I would lie down on the ground. You would see all these microscopic worlds in the grass or something. And I think from that point on, I became fascinated with creating worlds. As a kid, I was always just drawing, trying to submerge myself in my imagination. Thought it was more fun than playing soccer for me. And that's kind of always continued. So I started reading comic books like Asterix and Obelix or other stuff. And I wanted to be a comic book artist until the day I played Oblivion. And I saw that there's games in fantasy, and started modding with a friend. And then I realized I wanted to be, work in the game industry. And I did my studies regarding games. Always still drawing, so concept art was the most natural thing for me. And yeah, I think I've just always drawn and being fortunate enough to make my professions out of being a concept artist. I love characters. I still love creating worlds. So about that.
All right, awesome. Actually, for anyone who's interested, I think both Oblivion and Morrowind are on sale on Steam right now because I bought them both for $2.89. Because my region is in Turkey, so that's why it's so cheap. So just letting you know. But I think it has 70% discount. And that was kind of funny you mentioned Oblivion. It just reminded me of that. And all right, so the next kind of thing that comes into my mind that I want to ask you is: were you originally studying art and design, or you were pursuing another career path? I mean, you kind of mentioned generally how your path has been, but I want to know during this time, and maybe when you were in high school, or I don't know how the education system is in Netherlands, so sorry for my ignorance, but do you guys pick your major in high school at 16 or 18 or whatever? It doesn't matter basically. But I want to ask is during those times that you had to choose a major or something. Were you had doubts in your mind that maybe I should, pick an engineering major or, go become a doctor or something much more safe that I could have a safety net and have art as a side, as a hobby to, grow it. How was that whole phase of your life been, and how, were your parents supportive? How was. And by the way, how's the society's outlook in Netherlands towards art as a career? I mean, maybe I'm sure right now it's better, just everywhere else, not just Netherlands. But when you were younger, just spill everything for us.
I graduated high school when I was 18, and it was just a normal high school, so nothing I had art as a subject, but it wasn't anything significant. I think like I said, I was always drawing and doing comics books. I think I published my first one when I was 14. So I think my parents saw that I was very into this, and they were always very supportive. I think my high school, they were a little, because I applied to a normal game school here, which isn't a university, but we call it higher education, HBO in Dutch. So So they were a bit like, oh, you should, do something a bit more fancier. But I was very set on being an artist. My parents really supported that. In that sense, I was very fortunate. And then I went to a 4-year course of basic game art education. So everything from 3D to special effects to even some programming. Took me 5.5 years to graduate there, but that was pretty much my trajectory during education.
And now here's another interesting, part of this subject. So after you found out, all right, you want to be an artist, but what led you to become a character concept artist? Like, as you know, there are like a gazillion different roles in the industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both as a 2D artist and a 3D artist. What led you specifically to character concept art?
I think I've always naturally been drawn to creating characters. When I made kids as a friends by drawing Goku from Dragon Ball Z, during my university actually really pushed me to become a 3D artist. So my internship was at Guerrilla Games as a 3D character artist. And I sat there and I walked past the concept art department. And I actually really felt like, because I was really doing a lot of 3D back then, I really felt I wanted to go back to doing 2D. So that's when I decided, I'm just going to go back to drawing. I think originally I started out doing illustration. That was also the first part of my career. But for me, I noticed that like you can work like months or like weeks on one illustration. I got carried away with being like too perfectionistic. That's when I figured out that during concept art you can just do a lot of ideas, explore, and specifically characters and that's really fitted more my personality, where like you let an art director choose, and I just got to draw characters all day and give that to an art director. So it was a very natural process for me, I think.
Right. And how is the whole experience being as a concept artist? Like, how many years you've been working as a concept artist right now, professionally?
I've been working professionally for 7 years. Like I said in the beginning, I did a lot more illustration stuff, but over the last 5 years, I've really catered my portfolio to character design only. And yeah, it's been really nice and a privilege. Like just getting to, I love seeing.
What you like?
Huh?
Just do what you like, I guess. Finally, the thing that you really are passionate about.
Yeah, and it's like. I think, to get back to your previous question, I think I've always been fascinated with anatomy. Like, I think as a kid, I would get 50 euros from my mom. She said, go buy some clothes, and I would come home with an anatomy book. I think it just really fascinated me how to draw the figure and the human figure and how to express that. And yeah, like it's like when you work as a character designer, you get to create a personality or culture from scratch that doesn't exist. So working in games and doing that kind of work has just been really, really fun. You get a brief, and then you get to like see what your vision for that be, and then you cooperate with other team members to create a unified vision. Yeah, it's really nice to create something that doesn't exist. Yeah, and bring it to life with your art.
All right. And here's another interesting thing that I want to ask you as well, like, just as a follow-up to this subject. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember. I nearly slipped out of my so right now, in your art session, you wrote that you're a freelance character concept artist, so you're not working in any particular company or studio. So now, as someone who has had extensive experience, if I'm not mistaken, both on working in a studio environment and also like being a freelance, in your personal experience, what have been some of the positives and negatives of both?
I think as a freelancer, there's a lot of assignments are very short term, which has both a positive and a negative, in the sense that if you don't like the assignment, that it's over soon and you get to do something different. It really challenges you to adapt art styles. Sometimes you get to do project that you really like. On the flip side of that, the last 3 years I was over at Unknown Worlds, and even though I was a freelancer there, I was pretty much very involved with the team. And I think the upside of working in a team or in a studio, in their case it was a remote studio, is that you get to talk to your colleagues, and it becomes more of a passionate thing where together with friends you get to create games. And yeah, it's more of a, you get to bounce your ideas of others. You get to see, you get to maybe be more involved with like other aspects of game design, like how the modelers take your concept art to the next stage, etc. Yeah.
All right. And now, I think, to conclude this part of the podcast, I think this question is going to be really useful for a lot of people as well. We can end this chapter of the podcast with this. Not the end of the episode, actually, just this part of the podcast. How does your design process usually go anytime you want to start working on a new piece or a project? Like as a designer, because I know there's every artist has their own certain methodology and, way of thinking when it comes to approaching a project. But I want to know how does your design process usually look like? Like what does the structure of your pipeline usually look like? Kind of like that.
For me, I'll get a brief, and it can be anything from, like, let's say we need a dwarf who's, a scientist. What I'll start by doing is I start making associations and what I'd like to call signifiers. So a dwarf, what makes us think of a dwarf? Their height, their stocky face, their beard. But then I heard scientist, and I'm like, what do we think of when we think of a scientist? So I try and think of all what I call signifiers, elements that signal to the viewer that they are that certain thing. And then what I'll try and do is I'll just try and see how much variation can I bring within those parameters to create interesting design. So let's say we're doing a dwarven scientist. I'll definitely do I'll give him goggles. I'll make sure he has a nose and a beard and maybe some flask. But I can also be, he's a dwarven, so they're more skilled with metal and stuff. So maybe he's walking in a small mech. And I'll just do this thing where I do 5 or 6 sketches with line art and try and explore as wide variety of designs as possible within those parameters by making different associations. And with each sketch that I do in this stage, just make sure I do something different. Like I don't want to do 5 options where they all have goggles and they all have maybe a gauntlet. I try to really make sure I display a wide variety of solutions to a certain problem.
Right. And so also in your experience, if you're working as a character concept artist, what are some of the golden rules, like the most important rules and just lessons you've learned for an artist who wants to become a character concept artist, who considers character concept art as a role?
I think it's important, and I think this is just something that I see a lot. It's important to think character design is not as fan art. So I think there's often, people like drawing characters, and because we like drawing the characters that we see in other games, I think if you want to work as a character designer, it's important to show a couple of things. I think simplicity in a certain way, that simplicity in silhouette and recognizability. So you need to be able to create an iconic silhouette that's, recognizable of your character. I think you need to be able to showcase you can, portray culture within your character or a certain sense of story that when you see their character, you understand what they're about. You do that by, knowing what, the signifiers that show the user. Like if you give a character a cowboy hat, you have certain associations with that. So strong sense of culture, strong sense of design fundamentals. Obviously, as a character designer, you need to draw characters, but also anatomy. But I think those are the basics. And I think those are important cornerstones of character design. Color, you need to direct the composition within your character to where the viewer is looking.
We've talked about character art a lot right now. So to follow up on that, who are some of your favorite artists and designers and maybe even character artists who have inspired you the most throughout your life?
I've gone all over the place. When I started out, it was Marko Djordjevic. He currently works at Six More Vodka. I've had a period where I was very influenced by Evan Amundsen. Lately, I've been flirting more with stylized character design. So think of Baldy Konijn, Hitcham, Hapchi. Tutu, I think, is an amazing character designer. Pretty much those artists have played the biggest role within my career.
All right. And so now let's talk about, some general stuff like, were you a gamer when you were younger? Were you into games? I mean, of course, you mentioned that, video games Oblivion was then.
Yeah.
I think that's really inspired you. But, what type of games do you usually used to play and have inspired you a lot?
I mean, I already mentioned the Elder Scrolls Oblivion and both Skyrim. I think they were very influential for me, like fantasy. I did play them, but I also quickly moved to modding those games and creating my own content. I think throughout my life, I've played Baldur's Gate recently, which I love. Like everybody has. I wouldn't say I'm a big gamer. I feel like I sit so much time behind the computer drawing that, when I have time, I want to actually go out there and go outside, see some nature. But when I do play games, I actually really like I think I as a kid, I did play like the Call of Duty, but now these days I just want to sit down, play something like XCOM or maybe even Total War, where I could just get to be tactical. Those are the games I've enjoyed. But I definitely would say I'm not a big gamer. Probably like I play like one game a year, and I don't play regularly.
All right. And what are some of your, plans for the future? Like when I know that sounds like that's like one of the most hated questions people usually get, I know. But in terms of like, personal projects or any personal IPs, anything you're developing right now?
I did a huge post on ArtStation the other day where I went on a 3-month trip to Central America, where I was very fortunate to see a lot of beautiful nature, and we did a snorkeling trip where I saw like corals and sea life. So I'm a big surfer in my life, so I love the ocean, and I wanted to do a project where I envision a culture that is living close with the tides, and they have all these colorful pennants around them. And I think for me, like the more I've done characters, I've done skins. For me personally, I'm more interested in doing like IP development, so trying to figure out my own worlds, and not just a single character, like characters how they relate to each other with some environments work, like how the creatures live in that environment. I think it's also something I started thinking about with the rise of AI. AI can do character designs, they can do like illustrations, but I think what they can't do for sure is make stuff cohesive and make stuff like put more thought behind it, like how does it move, how does a certain arm unfold, how do these creatures live in the world, and how do the creatures in the world like affect how the
Yeah, I mean,
there's more to thought behind it.
Yeah, like I mean, there was this video by Feng Zhu. I don't know if you watched that. He recently came back on his YouTube again. Just summary of what he said. Basically, one of the major points that he mentioned was, and he's actually right, that AI is just really good at form, but not good at design.
Yeah,
like it doesn't understand design. Like even you see those environment illustrations where there's like both interior and exterior of the house at the same time. Like one part of the illustration is the interior of the house and the other part exterior. AI can do that. And like AI doesn't understand design, like mechanical design, or just it can just come up with forms and cool shapes. That's it. And at the end of the day, listen, even like the thing is, even if it can get better at design, at the end of the day, it's a tool. Sure, a lot of jobs will be lost, and it's going to get harder to get in the industry. But at the same time, like if you have a really good idea, I don't think you're competing with the people who use AI, not the actual AI. So at the end of the day, you're good. Like, for example, if you're an indie game developer or something like that, I don't think you should be worried because there are like already amazing projects being made right now, But yeah, like to be honest, I'm not an expert. I'm just a dude who consumes media just like everyone else, So I don't want to say like I'm sure of what I'm saying, but this is what I feel. So what is your that?
I think, like it's, I think as a designers, we definitely draw, but a big part, like drawing is just the tool by which we express our thoughts. And the thoughts are actually more like when you want to work in this industry, I think like the drawing skill is obvious, but the thoughts you put behind your drawing, like what you're actually designing, are more important. And in that sense, that's not something AI can replace. You need to do the thinking yourself and showcase those things basically. So in that case, I'm not worried.
Right. And what are you working on right now that you can tell us about? What kind of projects is that? And before I ask about your personal projects, but now I want to like ask about like, are you working on a game or movie or just, of course, NDA I'm sure is involved. Mm-hmm. So if you could, divulge us with, as much as information as possible about your current projects, that'd be awesome.
Well, just prior, I worked 3 years on Moonbreaker with Unknown Worlds, which was very fun. We got to create a universe written by Brandon Sanderson. It was very fun working on that and creating the entire universe. I got to design a lot of cultures. Um, and I just recently, like 2 weeks ago, I came back from my 3 month sabbatical in Central America. So as of right now, I'm not actually working on anything. I'm right in between interviews with a couple places and just trying to see where I go. Um, Doing a lot of personal art, like I said, the project I recently posted, and doing some mermaid here and there. Working on a realistic sci-fi project at the moment for myself, and hopefully soon, like in a week or maybe 1.5 week. Yeah, I don't know what that's going to be, but start somewhere.
Of course, like I mean, this I think the easiest question for you to answer: what area beside the area you're working in right now, which is of course art related, your character, concept art is like would you be interested to explore and learn, or doing it in the future, or doing right now? I mean, it's the reason I say it's easy to answer because just from the background, if anyone's watching on YouTube, you can see a lot of your major hobbies right now, like surfing, drumming, a lot of stuff like that. So, and what non-art related stuff you got going on in your life, basically?
I play drums, so I play drums in a band with a couple of high school friends, and we're recording our own album at the moment. So I do a lot of learning how to edit my music, trying always to improve my drumming, writing songs. That's something I do a lot of time. I used to try and surf a lot. That's also what I did in Central America, and here in the Netherlands when we get waves. I do a lot of bouldering, so rock climbing. No, I don't think drawing is the best for your back and your body, so it's good to move. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what keeps me occupied.
Yeah, Netherlands doesn't have any mountains, does it?
We're as flat as a pancake. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. Yeah. Bouldering, like, I was, oh, that makes sense. But I think, if you go to Germany or other countries, like, I think there should be enough, like, places that you can, do rock climbing or bouldering or stuff like that, right?
Well, there's a lot of rock climbing gyms in the Netherlands. I think the town where I'm from, they have like 5 at this point. It's very popular, and there's a lot of places you can go hang on a wall and go climb up.
And well, we've reached the final question and section of this podcast, which is called Time Capsule. And the best way I could describe it is, could you please summarize and tell us the most valuable life lessons you've learned throughout your life as a human till now, at this point of time, till now? What are the most important and valuable lessons you've learned and that you could share with us? What would those be?
You are not defined by your art, and you aren't as good as your last drawing. I think a lot of the time what we do, we try, as artists, we want to be successful, we want to be popular, we want to get likes. So especially when you're starting out and you're not maybe getting the results or the likes that you want, you might feel bad about yourself. You might get disheartened. And I, for one, have been in that position where you're like, oh, I didn't get the response I want. And then you feel bad. You go lie on the couch. Maybe in a couple of days or the next day you feel like inspired again. But I don't think you should look at yourself like that. I think you should really focus on the way I try and approach doing art is I just try and move my arm. I think that's what art is. Sometimes I move my art for 8 hours and I do something really, really nice. Sometimes, a lot of the times I move it for 8 hours and it's bad. And of course you have to learn, but I think it's important to be thankful when it works and also not be too hard on yourself when it doesn't work. And it's just about building up the routine of keeping going. And like I said, don't put your identity on the quality of your art. Also with time, it's going to get better. I think the best thing you can do for yourself in your art is just keep moving your arm. And that's all it is. Yeah. It's better for your mental health as well, I think. Yeah.
All right. You aren't defined by your art and you are not good as your last drawing. That's awesome. Like, very well said. And, well, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule for coming on for us with this podcast. And thank you to anyone who tuned in and listened to this episode. I'm sorry if the format is not like before. The website I used to record, episodes with is kind of didn't work, while we wanted to, like, I know the videos are not separate, like how they usually would. So I'll try to find better solution for that so I can consistently keep it just the same format. But with that being said, as always, if there's any comments, suggestions, or critiques, please leave them down in the comment section down below. And with that being said, by the way, where can people contact you if they had any questions? Is your Instagram okay?
Yeah, my Instagram, I try and make sure to reply to most people unless I'm busy, but most of the time I get to at some point. Definitely send me DM.
Awesome, man. And well, folks, take care, stay safe. Until next episode, bye-bye.
Thanks.